Welcome back to Acadiana's Morning News. We're back with all three panelists, Carol, Warren, and Stafford. Hope you had a great Christmas. Christmas Eve, we saw a shooting at the mall, and officers kind of had to rush to lock down everything. I'm interested in the safety side of things because we wanted to talk to the mall. They declined to come on. But how do these businesses keep people safe and tell people it's safe so that they can go there?
Well, I empathize with public places like a mall. I mean, you cannot plan for everything that's going to happen, and I'm surprised it's taken this long for these kinds of things to hit in Lafayette. I mean, we had the theater shooting a while back, which was someone from out of town coming in doing the. It's a troubling world we live in, and I don't know that any public entity can plan for every eventuality. And I feel I empathize with them all. I mean, that you try to make it a happy experience where you don't have
Yeah.
policemen all over the place. You don't. There's. I think they need to have maybe more plainclothes security in there.
Are
Maybe
there?
that is something that they need to do. That they need to think about. But I just don't think you cannot plan for everything that could possibly happen. It's just the way the world is today. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
And I was listening to Bernie's interview with Chief Aguilard and how different things were when he was a kid, and how his mom could say, "Go out and play and don't come back till it's dark," and looking at my favorite movie over the weekend, A Christmas Story, the Christmas Story, with him wanting the BB gun,
Yeah.
his Red Ryder BB gun, and all the kids who would go out and play every day. They'd have a couple of bullies to deal with, but nothing like the kids have to deal with today.
Yeah.
So it's vigilance all the time.
I did think back. One of the family members I was with over Christmas, we were watching Christmas Story 2,
Yeah.
and she made the comment and said, "Well, as far as the Christmas Story goes, this guy can go home from his bully. This kid goes home from his bully. The bully doesn't follow him there." And then you start to talk about social media and everything else, how it's so prevalent in our world. The bully
Yeah.
can be anywhere you
Well,
are.
and the bully didn't go home and tell his mom, well, now that kid beat me up, and she got a lawyer and sued the parents
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
kid, little Ralphie.
Stafford, you're a parent, probably the ideal customer that the mall would love to have, there.
I wouldn't call myself the ideal customer.
Well, I'm just saying,
But-
you have a family, you're buying things, you have a job,
Yeah.
you have money to spend at a mall.
I only feel comfortable in lace,
You-
so I've got to go to Victoria's Secret.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I wasn't going to go there, but since you put it out there on the radio, I guess it's now fact. But
Look, there's two things, right? So, the mall has its own security, and they seem like they're a pretty good police force. I got my first ever ticket from mall police when I was 16,
for doing what?
speeding through the parking lot.
Okay, you deserve it.
And I was on the verge of tears because I thought it was real.
Yes.
But they're not real. That they're not wards of the state or the city, right? So, look, the world is in a place right now where you could literally stay home all day. You could get your groceries delivered. You can get everything that you want delivered. In fact, it's actually more convenient now because with some of the stuff that's out there, you can get the clothes delivered to your house. You can try them on and send back what you don't want.
Yeah.
Right. In
Yeah.
the comfort of your own home. Violence is real, and it happens, and you should be prepared for it, and you should take steps to protect your family. But if that step is to lock yourself in your home, you're going to have a very miserable life. I remember the first time I went to the movies after the theater shooting, right? I had to tell myself, look, that was somebody with a mental health issue, right? And then we have this shooting at the mall. I don't think that this is being blamed on a mental health issue. It's being, I think, currently blamed on spillover violence.
Yeah, a fight between two people. Yeah,
So,
or two groups.
Yes, you could lock yourself at home, but at the same time, there are ways to protect yourself, and there are ways to be smart and be good to your family and take care of them.
Warren, the cost on business for this security, even talking about it, I know it's a huge cost. If you're talking about salaries, if you're talking about people, wouldn't it be a good time for the mall or any store who has to deal with this, for the Grand, when they were in that situation, to say, here's what we're doing to keep people safe? Isn't that a pretty good investment?
I think up to a point, you're exactly right. And I also agree with what Stafford says. You can't lock yourself into a cocoon and stay there and just let the world go by. And well, some people can and be totally happy doing that.
Yeah.
Others can't, and that what you need to do is to be always aware of your surroundings and what's going on, and be cognizant of what can happen. But also is that it's the society we live in today. I had people that I know who live in, quote, the hood. And they said, that used to, the guys would fight. If they get into an argument, they get out there in the street and go rolling around and fighting. That today, they just start popping caps, and that's what's and that's what's really sad is that, back in the old days, and I don't know how far back that goes, but it does go back a pretty good ways, that people who wanted to fight, who wanted to have a gunfight or whatever, they just got away from the crowd, went outside and shot each other, and people gathered around to watch them, and that was it. Nobody else got hurt, and but I think I don't think we're more violent than we've ever been. In fact, I think we're a lot less violent, and that but I do think that we have more cases of people who are just insane.
Yeah.
And, and some of those people are not responsible for the action, but most of them are responsible enough.
Yeah.
By the way, my crack research team says that the mall does have off-duty police officers there every day.
Walking. Okay.
Right.
Oh, Lafayette police officers?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, in there. Because it came up. I was talking to some friends. I distinctly remember there are 2 or 3 malls we would go to in Atlanta, and they had a precinct visible. One of the storefronts.
Yeah.
I mean, there are empty storefronts. You could make it look way bigger and scarier than it is to put Lafayette Police above one of those empty storefronts, have a desk, come report here. Sometimes just the visual. I don't know. I know.
Another thing to remember too is it was one shot, only one person got hit.
Yeah.
So in that worst case scenario, that is the best case scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. I had an aunt who lived in the shadow, no joke, a shadow of the Superdome on Broad Street in this neighborhood that really just went downhill. And she had a really nice house in there. And the older she got, she lived to about 97. But the older she got, her family members say, get out of here. Mm-hmm. And she would sit back and say, no, I have the best police force in the whole state around me. And they bring my trash can in for me, and that's a lot of times what happens. You talk about people, your friends that you have who don't live in the best area. Well, if they've always lived there, they've seen it, people know them, and everything else. So anyway, we hope for the best. I appreciate you guys coming in the day after this holiday as things
Yeah, boy, I
get
thought you were
back
going to give us
underway.
the morning off, Rob.
Wow, I'm
Big
rough.
generous Rob.
I'm rough.
But we're getting overtime pay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wait a second. Do you guys think you're part of the shutdown? Like y'all don't have to come to work because there's no agreement in D.C.? We're going to talk about that and what's happening with the markets all coming up. It's Wingin' It Wednesday, December 26, 2018. 7:16 now at News Talk 96.5 KPEL. We're joined by all 3 Wingin' It Wednesday panelists in studio with us today. Appreciate you guys coming in. So the president was all alone at the White House, at least until Melania and Barron came home. They made some calls. And you know what? I love it. It's funny because I understand. A lot of times people will use the Trump quotes to show that he's dumb. But if nothing else, he's comedic relief. The talking with the troops yesterday, basically everything's terrible here in this country, but the bottom line is Merry Christmas. And like those quotes, they just hit. And he just says stuff like that so off the whim. You can't I guess not understand why some people say, well, that shows he's totally out of control. I think he's just kind of a funny guy. Like personally, the thing with the 7-year-old he was talking to said, so you're 7, you believe in Santa? Pretty marginal, right? Right? I mean, that you actually believe. And like, that's the one thing people pick up on. So, I don't know. Warren, we're going to start with you. We're in the midst of all this stuff. Last Thursday was a doozy. I mean, you had the shutdown, you had Mattis. Now you have Mattis's, the time he said he was going to leave is now moved up. It's January 1st, and the replacement, or at least interim replacement's already been named. Lots going on into what is normally a very quiet portion of the calendar between Christmas and New Year's. What are your thoughts?
Let's get back to the Mattis deal. That I think it's kind of strange is that so many people were so opposed to Jim Mattis being appointed Secretary of Defense because he was a Marine general and blah blah blah, and that they weren't supposed to have those kind of jobs. And so,
It's okay. It's all right.
so they
Tell
were,
him- tell him I'm
so
more
they
important.
didn't want him there. But this is one of those things where I think that both sides are right. I think that Trump is right about pulling the troops out of Syria. I think we went over there when we shouldn't have gone in there, and I'm talking about in Iraq, which boiled over to Syria. We had no business over there to begin with, and we caused about 80% of that problem. Well, we certainly helped it along, and just it got totally out of hand. We were funding our money wound up funding ISIS and all that group. I do think that we need to support the Kurds. I think we need to arm them. We need to rearm them, and on and on and on. And so I do think that Trump is right on that. Get out.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I think Mattis is right. I think he did the right thing. If you disagree with your boss, if you disagree with the direction that they're going, then you have an obligation to leave at some point. What we have had so long in Washington with the Pentagon and with all that is that they have become these people that were more worried about their careers and the promotions than they were about the overall objective of what they were trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I keep going back to Vietnam. Not a damn thing ever came up about let's conclude this charade. Let's win. Let's do something. But what they did was just keep shuffling paper, shuffling along. Well, I don't want to object to that. Well, I'm not going to do it. Finally, Robert McNamara, who was the Secretary of Defense then, quit because he said, later on, he said, well, I knew the thing wasn't going to work when we first started. And it just got out of hand, so I just thought it was best that I leave. But he didn't say that when he left. He didn't say, I have a disagreement with the president. I have a disagreement with the direction. He just sleeked out of it. And that's what I think that Mattis has done a great job of just standing up and saying, look, I disagree with it, so I'm gone.
Carol, the assertion, it seems like that a lot of the folks who have spoken out about this, so far not one advisor has come out publicly and said they advised him to do this. And we heard that the first time this even came up was during a call with Turkey's president, who he came up last week on Wingin' It Wednesday. Not the best dude.
He's a terrible person.
So if this came up the first time,
But on occasion, he is our terrible ally.
and
And the unfortunate thing, and I'm glad Warren brought up about the Kurds. This has been a thing of mine for a long time. The Kurds have been absolutely stunning all along in fighting Saddam. They were gassed by Saddam. That goes way back. Turkey calls them a terrorist group. Every single organization over there, they're afraid of the Kurds, and the Kurds are sitting on one of the biggest oil fields, their home area, and so that's been a big part of it. And it just disturbs me no end. The only thing that bothers me about the Syrian pullout is if we leave the Kurds at the mercy of Turkey or Syria or any other bad actor. But in that phone call,
Russia's in there too, right?
well, of course,
Yeah.
the biggest bad actor of all, well, not the biggest, China is, but in this part of the world, Russia.
Yeah.
But let me say this: in that phone call with Erdogan, Bolton was right there with Trump, and he said, "Mr. Bolton, is that true? What Erdogan says that ISIS is 99% defeated? They may control one little postage stamp of area, and we can handle that, along with some of the Kurdish and the Syrian fighters, etc." And Bolton had to admit that that was true. That was true. Where was Trump to go? When he ran for office, he said, we're getting out of those areas. There's no percentage in it for us. Number two, he told Mattis 6 to 8 months ago, figure out the plan to get us out of Syria reasonably, in a reasonable amount of time. He didn't do it. Mattis didn't do it. And so after that phone call with Erdogan, and John Bolton, his own security advisor, says, yeah, well, Erdogan's right. They're pretty much dead meat, and, we can get out of there. But as I say, going back to the Kurds, the military-industrial complex kicks into high gear whenever anybody says anything about cutting back on defense contracts or anything like that. And Warren has spoken of this many times. And many of those congressmen who came out hard against it have defense contractors in their district. I mean, in Washington, they got the dirty little fingers in every little pie.
Yeah, Stafford, I would imagine you take exception to the mission accomplished feeling of the announcement.
No, we've made this mistake before, right?
A lot of people did bring up George W. Bush and the aircraft carrier speech with the big mission accomplished banner behind him. That
Right.
we now know that, what was it? Is the stat 90% of the deaths we've had in Iraq happened after that moment?
Right. Yeah. So Warren hit on a couple things that I agree with and a couple that I don't. So when Jim Mattis came in, I didn't necessarily support him. I didn't know that. I thought he was the right guy. I was afraid that he was a little too pro-war, and I wanted to see us start pulling out of some of these places. And what I found over time was that I thought that he did an absolutely phenomenal job, and was a man of integrity. And I had friends who were Marines who came to me and said, "Look, I dealt with this guy personally, and he's a great leader." So him departing, in the scathing letter that he wrote, right, saying we used to support our allies, we used to stand up for the things that we thought were right, and right now we're operating with people who are a little less than ethical. Basically, 5 paragraphs of why he wanted to be out, and that's why Trump tried to say he retired when he didn't retire. He left, right, in protest of what was going on. So I hate to see him go. Trump tried to claim he had all the best generals, all these people. All the generals are gone, or either gone or indicted, right? To Carol's point, the Kurds are dead, right? Erdogan has said he's going to kill the Kurds. We saw news this morning that Syria is amassing tanks on the border with the intent of going and killing the Kurds. The Kurds, who are our allies, who we've supported for a long time and we've armed, Trump has made the decision to let them die. They will be dying over the next week. Okay, ISIS is not defeated. We've got 2,500 troops in Syria. That is the line between the Kurds living and the Kurds dying.
I want to stop you right there because I want to go back to Carol. So say this does happen. Say the Kurds are gone. Then where does it lie? Is Jim Mattis now sitting back somewhere saying, kind of like, I told you so, that's why I didn't want to do this? Then what's the next thing? And we'll come to you with it, Warren.
Well, I don't think necessarily the Kurds are dead. It's going to be a long, protracted battle. And by the way, try to figure out who our allies are over there, by the way. Why would we want our guys in there supporting Assad or any of the bad actors in Syria?
Mm-hmm.
And they're all bad actors in Syria, in my opinion, except for the white hats, the white helmets who go and help people.
Warren?
Yeah, the one thing that I completely disagreed with Jim Mattis's letter when he talked about how that we had this long-standing support of standing by our allies and all of that stuff. We have screwed our allies so many damn times and gotten them involved in these conflicts that they had no business being in, but they thought they had to be there because we were asking them to be there, and on and on and on. As far as the Kurds are going to die, I doubt that the Kurds are going to die because the Kurds are pretty damn fierce. Yes. If you go back to George H.W. Bush, he told the Kurds, he said, anybody who will overthrow Saddam Hussein, we will stand behind you 100%. We'll give you whatever you need. And that there was a 60-minute segment on the Kurds with Leslie Stahl, and she was out there interviewing these little blonde-haired, blue-eyed kids up there, and she said you could be in any neighborhood in the United States. And here we are in the middle of the Kurds in northern Iraq, and that Jesse Jackson and 2 or 3 others came out there and went to lambast and all of that. So the only reason you're protecting the Kurds is because you think that they're white and blah, blah, blah. And they're not, wouldn't be in my neighborhood. And so that's history. You can say Jesus all you want to. But anyway, then whenever the Kurds were going to attack old Saddam Hussein, what happened? The Republican Guard went up there. And the Kurds sat there looking up in the sky, waiting for that promised relief that George H.W. Bush promised them that would be there. And it never came. And they got attacked with chemical warfare and on and on. The exact same thing happened again under Bill Clinton. And now we're going back to the same thing. But I just believe if we'll arm those Kurds, those Kurds can handle their own fight.
Stafford, I interrupted you. I'll let you finish your point. When I kind of wanted to ask about the Kurds because that is where this whole thing seems to lie.
For the longest time, they were the only functioning area of Iraq after the invasion.
Okay. Yeah, they can be as fierce as they want. They don't have drones, okay? The American military support is what has kept them alive in the battle. And us pulling out of there, which nobody, and look, listen, the thing I struggle with internally, this is me being as honest as possible, is that
thank you
Trump,
for that.
Trump comes out and says any other president would have done this, he'd have been seen as a hero, right? And look, there's a part of them that I have to kind of agree with them on that because, look, I want troop drawdowns. Like I want us to stop being at war in the Middle East.
What you said, yeah.
And that's what he ran on.
We've got perpetual war there. The problem that we have is that I don't know that Saudi Arabia is the right place to do it. Maybe we shouldn't be in a proxy war in Africa. Maybe we shouldn't be. I don't know that the traditional places are the places where we need to go pull people. I can tell you the places where we don't need troops, the American border, right? We're pulling 2,500 troops out of Syria. How many did we send down to the border?
Well, they're coming back now.
Well, they're coming back now because
yeah.
the election's over. The publicity stunt is done.
Okay, so this is what I want to ask then. So at the end of the day,
Let me say something. We're talking
Yeah.
about what we know in the media,
Yep.
right? What we've been told. We have no idea what Trump is doing behind the scenes to arm the Kurds. He wouldn't want that to be known. Look at the hoopla that came out when he armed the Ukraine, when he sent more weapons to the Ukraine. So I think that there may be something going on behind the scenes.
I'm going to let you wrap this one up, Steph, Warren, but I'm going to ask you. So is this sort of, in your opinion, is it like making a budget where it's uncomfortable for the first couple months? Is this that one step to troop drawdown that's uncomfortable right now? Seriously, put yourself in the position 2 months from now. What if it succeeds?
Like if it succeeds, I'll say that I'm wrong.
Uh-huh.
Like that's the thing. It's a bunch of what ifs. Like I don't know what the answer is. I just know that we have somebody who's arguably one of the most experienced military professionals on the planet, right? And General Mattis, who has said, I can't be a part of this administration anymore because of this decision. And when you see that kind of stuff, you kind of got to sit back and go, maybe that guy is right. Maybe we shouldn't listen to Cadet Bone Spurs, right? And maybe we should be listening to somebody who's fought and killed.
Wrap this one up for us, Warren.
Yeah, one of the things I want to say is that General Mattis has never been engaged in any war that they won. We don't have a single general in the military who has. We have a military that is politically correct and on and on and on. Where the whole problem started, you say, will it be success? Define success over there. You
That's the
can't.
problem.
All it is just one quagmire, one mistake after another. But what we should have done at the very beginning, we should have enlisted Russia on our side because they wanted to. We got the same enemy. You look at what's going on over Chechnya, between Chechnya and them, and Russia's down there defending Syria that it's opposed to ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and all of that group. And we're sitting there arming them. I mean, it is absolutely insane.
So if Trump did that today and said Russia's now our ally, can you imagine what would be said about him?
I don't know. I don't know that anything worse could be said about him.
Okay.
But I will tell you this: if you did that, and then next thing you know, they turn everything loose over there, and they wipe out that bunch, then there may be people who say, "Ooh, well."
I'm just happy we have Kevin Spacey to distract us from the shutdown. That was weird, guys. We're just now watching a piece where there's this highly produced video of Kevin Spacey. It's up now at kpal965.com. It's just weird. The whole thing is.
And then the little Santa Claus apron he's wearing. I mean, like.
Well, what? I'll be honest. I kept seeing Kevin Spacey video. Spacey video. I thought it was some, I don't know, YouTube video or like a cell phone video, and then I look at it, I'm like, it looks produced. So. Anyway, welcome back to Acadiana's Morning News. I appreciate you joining us on Wingin' It Wednesday. Let's talk about that shutdown, Stafford. We know that it's a percentage. It's not a complete government shutdown. There are a lot of things. Even the place where the National Christmas tree was closed down briefly, then apparently a big donation came in.
Magic.
They reopened it. It was a Christmas miracle.
Christmas miracle.
People could climb up at will of the Christmas tree.
Yes,
it was great.
Indeed.
Air Force One still running.
Things are
So
still
you have a Christmas
working.
miracle. Get Melania back to the White House.
Well, this is my question. So we kept hearing the stat with previous partial shutdowns. It was like 17%, which is a minuscule amount unless you're in the 17%,
Right.
or you need the services of that 17%.
Yeah.
So, do you see this thing ending? Nancy Pelosi has come out and said after January, when all the Democrats are in, now we're gonna fix it. We're gonna pass reform. It still needs the president's signature. That's the part that, at the end of the day, it still needs the president's signature.
Yeah.
So, as Warren has said in previous Wingin' It Wednesday episodes, the administration usually wins out on these because it ultimately needs the president's signature.
Yeah, I doubt that's going to happen. So 800,000 people are going to get checks around Christmas, right? That's
well, they
the
have
number.
no. They've
Right.
gotten their checks. They're getting their checks on the 28th for all the work they've
So
done.
something's changed in the
It's-
past 24 hours?
No, it's always been this. They get their last check of the year, the 28th, for work done.
So it's the one
It's
after
the one
that.
after. It's
Okay.
the one on, I
Okay.
think, the 5th or
right.
15th or something. So
So
they are getting paid around Christmas. That's kind of a weird talking point. But
okay.
so people will be paid for the work they did. It's
Okay.
the next one that's in danger.
All right, so the
Just
number
to
is
keep us
800,000
fair,
people who
yeah.
have potential to miss a check, right? The the Democrats won 40 seats in the House, and they did it on the backs of young voters, independent voters, and women voters and minority voters, who all overwhelmingly in the polls oppose this wall. The president is not going to get a wall, and so he can do this all he wants. He should have tried to negotiate this last year, but he didn't. He waited till this year to do it, and he was getting ready to sign a bill, right? That didn't include funding for the border, and now because people have called him out on it, he's wanting to go back and fight for it. Look, I get what he's trying to do. He's got a base that he's got to sell to. I think it's silly. I think that the idea of walls are silly. There's an old story. Show me a 20-foot wall. I'll show you a man selling 22-foot ladders. Like that, you can climb over them. And the irony is, we've now admitted, the president has unknowingly admitted that we don't need it because we're able to turn away these caravans without a wall. Okay, so he's not going to get it. The Democrats have zero reason to work with him on this. Zero reason. So I just don't see it happening. It'll never make it through the House. So I wish him luck. I think this is a mistake on his part. I've said it before, I'll say it again, he's not good at negotiating large deals. He's not good at bringing people together, and because of that, this is going to fall flat on its face.
Warren, it seems like in the last couple days, even though he hasn't moved off his want for the wall, the amount has changed. Apparently, what is it now? $2.5 billion. He said he could do it between 2 and 2.5 billion. In the press conference in Christmas, he said, you can call it what you want. You can call it a fence. You can call it whatever they want to call it. So it kind of goes back to what is it? Because it seems like the Democrats are most scared about a wall. If he came out and said there are walls in certain places, there is aerial support in other places, there are fences in other places, which we already have, couldn't he win? Couldn't he get funding for that?
No.
No?
Oh, I disagree
No.
with that 100%.
No, because because look, the Democrats and the media are going to be opposed to him. I don't care what he does, and that's all they do is they preach doom and gloom and this, that, and other. And that the biggest mistake he made is he should have gone ahead and towed the line on this thing way back a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he gives in, it's going to be the same thing that they did with old man Bush on the read my lips, no new taxes deal. They praised him when he gave in, told him about how good it was and how bipartisan he
And how he was
was
gonna
and
get the
how good
spending
it was
cuts.
for the country, and it threw the country into a damn recession. And that when it came time for his reelection, what did they do? The whole Clinton Democrat platform was, he lied
Look
to
what he
you.
did,
He
yeah.
lied to you. He said no new taxes, read my lips, and he turned around and signed that tax bill. So it is a no-win situation for Trump if he gives in.
What do you think,
Well,
Carol?
let me say this. I mean, they haven't figured him out yet. So he goes for the max at the beginning, right? And now he's negotiating. And now he's showing that he's the reasonable one, and they're being unreasonable. And I think there's a teachable moment here, and I think that's what he's trying to do. That he's backing off, but they're not. That they're intransigent. That they're rigid. They don't care about border security. Caravans are something that were they were put together as a media stunt, et cetera, by a lot of people who have a big agenda, but sneaking over the border is another thing, and we have thousands and thousands of people sneaking over the border. So in some areas, a wall is absolutely critical. In other areas, not so, because we have natural barriers in some areas. But I think the point that the president is trying to make is we absolutely need we need to focus like a laser on this because we are being overrun. Look at the countries in Europe, and I can tell you I have friends who just got back from Paris, who just got back from London. And they say London and Paris are not, and they've been to both places multiple times. It's not the same anymore over there because of their unlimited migration, because of the EU policies. And many of the countries over there are now following Trump's lead. You know, over 60 countries have now built walls along their border because they're just fed up. Other countries are getting it. Why is Britain getting out? Not only all the other policies, but definitely the migrant policy that has been put in by the European Union. So I think Trump went for the max. Now he's showing that he's being reasonable. He's negotiating, and they're stuck.
So
They're
is
stuck.
hindsight 2020 on the fact that there was $25 billion with as long as he agreed to DACA protection?
Well, I hope they just keep running those videos by Barack Obama saying, we need to know who's coming into our country.
But that's what I'm saying. The offer was out there.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
he
to fund it by 5.
And he's given at least some conservative media the opportunity to run those videos over and over again and show what phony hypocrites the Democrats are on this issue.
I think it's real important to point out that there's this false narrative about Democrats and what it is they actually want at the wall. I haven't met a single Democrat who said, I want an open border, okay? They've said, we want an intelligent system, a technology-based system, and more border
words. They don't want anything at that border.
More border patrol.
They want more illegal immigrants to vote for them.
No, because illegal immigrants can't vote. You can't.
In California, they
can. Hold on,
no, that's also something that is not true. Please, let's debate in fact only. I know.
Well, you've got
10 hours to do that on your own. So here's the point. That's not true. They can't vote. Okay.
Even in the situation in California,
are voting in
I read
California.
about that, and that's not true.
It is true.
It is not true. It's been proven false. Okay. There's somebody who said they wanted them to vote, but it's against the law. They cannot vote in California. Period.
Okay.
So we'll let him finish.
So that being said, the Democrats have gone and said, look, $1.6 billion for border security. Let's get more assets in the air. Let's get more assets on the ground. Let's be smart about this, right? We don't have to put up a wall. Walls are not useful, right? And the president's come back and said no. I mean, you got to remember, he's not the smartest guy in the world, and so he thinks that walls are going to stop this kind of stuff. When in reality, anybody can climb one. There was a GoFundMe set up the next day for ladders.
Yeah, I saw that.
Warren, you're the ultimate closer, by the way. I'd pick you on my baseball team any day. Where does it leave us, though? Because at some point, I mean, it can't just be closed forever.
Why not? Where does it leave? Look, here's the thing that I think that everybody, more and more people are looking at.
Yep.
First of all, Stafford says he's never met a single Democrat who's for open borders. Well, apparently he's not met very many Democrats, because I know a hell of a lot of them that are for open borders and that are claiming that's what we need to do. But look at who the people who are so opposed to this wall in Washington and elsewhere live behind the wall. You remember when the Pope came out and said Christians don't build walls, they build bridges? In the Vatican, you look at the Vatican's wall, what is it, 40 feet high? Not 20 feet high, and I don't know anybody over there that's selling 42-foot ladders to get over it. Then you look at Nancy Pelosi, said the wall is immoral. And look at the wall around her house that is immoral. And you look at all these people in these gated communities with a wall built all the way around them and a guard at the gate. And is that immoral? But yet you look at what's going on down there. I mean, that's what's immoral. You got these coyotes bringing people across that border. I mean, our immigration system is absolutely broken.
So is there a way, to fast-track technology that could screen people quicker? Or are these, if there's no criminal record, that doesn't mean they're not criminals. You know what I'm saying? Like, if there's none. And I think that's what I think the argument becomes. So say you start to screen people. Well, if I show up and there is no record, it doesn't mean I'm...
Yeah, but look, here's the big problem. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. And so we said we can't just turn people back when they get there. So we passed all these laws that said everybody should have their day in court. But if you're going to have your day in court, then the laws were passed that said you have to have legal representation. And, the judge ruled the other day that those asylum seekers had to be flown back, And the reason for that is because that's the law. And if somebody comes in here,
the biggest deal is they went through the other country.
They get across the border and they say, I'm seeking asylum. Then there's certain things you have to do to, either grant it or deny it. And so, they get their day in court and all that. And so you got literally tens and tens of thousands of people that are waiting their day in court that will never come. and they don't care if it ever comes because they're here
Yeah,
and they're
yeah.
not going
you talk
back.
to anybody who's gone through the legal process, and they will tell you how screwed up the whole system is, and that is why we do need immigration law reform.
All right, it is 7:45. We are going to wrap up on this segment. Next, we will start with something Miss Alexandria
The Green New
Cortez.
Deal.
Bernie, Carol, I promise you agree with something she said yesterday. Every single letter of it. You agree with it. A lot of people are talking about it today. It's 7:46 now at Newstalk 96.5 KPL. We're back to wrap up Wingin' It Wednesday. So, Carol, I want you to tell me a word of this tweet that you disagree with. By the way, it is from Miss Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She says, next time we have a shutdown, congressional salaries should be furloughed as well. Completely unacceptable that members of Congress can force government into a shutdown on partisan lines, then have congressional salaries paid. They should not be exempt, have some integrity.
I'd take away their salary full time, actually. They're not doing
About-
anything. They're not getting anything done
Congress
up there.
is now a 501c3.
I'll tell you what. Let me tell you what. That's why I love that GoFundMe on the wall, because it proves the total irrelevance of Congress on this issue. They're just fighting each other and making political points and all that. And the rest of us out here who are paying the freight are getting totally ignored, the will of the people, as far as I'm concerned. And so I love that GoFundMe page for that reason
Well, I was
alone.
listening this weekend in Dallas to WBAP, a news talk station up there. Chris Saucedo said, as much as he agrees with what the purpose of the GoFundMe account is, he thinks it's outrageous that as a taxpayer he would give any more money for any other government project, is how he saw it. And also the fact that there's no vehicle for it to go towards anything except to general
Well, that's what they're
fund.
working on now. The lawyers are working on that right now,
Yeah.
and they've had conversations about that.
But
and I
wouldn't
think,
Congress
but
have
the-
to
but-
pass it because it's
yeah,
an appropriation?
But the point is being made that these people are
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about that.
'Cause
If they
it-
set it up as a separate account under the executive department, under the Treasury Department, that's what they were
Okay.
working on, negotiating on that. So they might not need Congress for that. Looks like we don't need Congress for much anymore, is
Yeah.
it? I mean, they're not doing exactly the important things that they should be doing. Their number one thing is protecting this country, and I think that not doing that border security to the max is a big problem.
Stafford, congressional salaries. I mean, there really is no, as far as they're concerned, I mean, like, unless one of the 17% of what is shut down involves someone in their district, it really doesn't even affect them.
I mean, yeah, they shouldn't get paid.
It's just a
If they don't do their job, they shouldn't get paid. Pretty
Point
simple.
blank.
Yeah, look, we've got I struggle with the idea that we keep putting people up there, and look, they're the representatives, so they have a right to be there. We keep putting people there who have to run for re-election, and they have to do it by disagreeing with the other side, and we create this tribalism that is super negative for functioning
Yep.
life.
and the most overused term ever of the 2018 on both sides.
Right.
That's how
Right.
they get elected. That's why you don't see a lot of moderates.
Look,
New moderates.
in this day and age,
You don't see any new moderates.
I'd
There
love to
might be
see
some
us-
moderates that have been around there for 30 years.
I'd love to see us rethink the way the government runs. I don't think that and look, I said this 10 years ago too. I don't think we need a president anymore. I think that, and I don't think that people need to run for re-election. If you can get those things going on, and people know that once they get there, they've got 5 years worth of work or 10 years worth of work, or whatever it is to do, and then they're going home. Maybe they'll start making decisions with integrity and stop having to raise money the whole time.
Interesting mindset, Warren.
Completely bizarre.
First of all, that anybody who's going to be missing a paycheck in this shutdown is going to get paid whenever it's over with. It always does, If it doesn't happen this time, it's going to be an anomaly. And that, how Congress acts, Stafford said they need to do the job. The problem is define their job. They see their job is going up there and trying to spend as much money as they can spend in the areas that's going to get them reelected and such stuff as that, whether it's whatever, you name it, defense spending, human services spending, education spending, transportation spending. It makes no difference. And so it's just that it's a feeding frenzy, and that's why we got a $23 trillion debt, and it's not going to go away. It's just going to keep getting worse and worse. But the one thing I do absolutely agree with is the idea that don't run for election.
So
You
a
know,
term
or,
limits,
or
a
if you
term
get
limits
term
conversation.
limits, or
Yeah.
if you do, you have like 2 terms you can serve, and that's it.
Yeah. something that eliminates the net. That's my only perspective on it. I realize that we'll probably never do it, but I think that the biggest problem with government is having to run for re-election.
You know,
Having to
I
raise money.
understand that when a congressman goes up there, that the first thing happens is that they get taken into a room and told that you've got to raise $10,000 a day.
For the
Well,
poor.
but isn't that the whole? That's the magic bullet with the whole Nancy Pelosi thing. Is that she is a fundraiser. She
Yeah.
is a great
that is
fundraiser
exactly right.
for
They
the
will
party.
not throw her over.
So
because
that's
of
the
that
that's
reason.
the debate. You know.
Well, I think there are a couple of things that we need. Number one, you limit their ability to lobby after they get out. They can if they're ever an elected official in Washington D.C., they cannot lobby afterwards. They can't get retirement. No retirement. You'd see how many people would.
That's right.
Get
The only
cleared out.
retirement they get is what they put in.
I was about
what
to say
they
that
set
Exactly.
becomes a
aside.
regular
Exactly.
job. Why
Exact-
would they ever want that? Why would they ever want to have a 401k?
And the other
Come
thing
on.
is a balanced budget amendment. Those three things you keep them from because look, a lot of them once they get in there, they start seeing what happens if I don't get reelected. I've got to make my friends and I got to see who I'm going to go lobby for afterwards. You may be able to name
Oh, so
one
you said there was one.
Louisiana rep that came back, and he actually got a local job. With Mid-Continent Oil and Gas when that Chris John
Chris
got
John,
it. Yeah,
John Cooksey.
Cooksey.
Yeah.
Right. Very few come back.
Wow. Well, guys, hopefully we won't be talking about a shutdown next week, but it's looking like it's possible after the first of the year. Carol Ross, you can hear this afternoon on the Ross Report. Warren Cottle and Stafford Barnett in here as well. Thanks for coming in,
It's
guys.
been a
Thank you.
joy and a pleasure.
Have a
and
happy New
privilege.
Year.
Wow.
Are you going to make us do this again next Wednesday?
Well, it will be not a
Oh
holiday,
my
so I hope to
gosh.
see you.
Oh my gosh.
Just please don't knock on my window, or I'm not letting anyone in. Anyone who knocks, not letting them
You
in.
treat us like redheaded stepchildren here. I hope you realize that.
7:55
We got to beg to
now.
get in the building.
There's free coffee. I don't
We're
wanna
not
hear it.
allowed to go past the front desk.
It's all in the name of security. All right, December 26th, 2018. We're back with
He's
more.
built a wall.
Next,
He's
yeah,
got
there's
a-
a
he's built
Yeah,
a
there is
the
a
Town Square Media
wall.
wall, guys.
There is a wall. It's